All right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. I know we've got some teachers who've been joining us all week, month, year long, but if you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And I'm so pleased you're here today because, as you can see in my little bio guy, it's the end of Ocean Week. We have been doing a huge slew of broadcasts with some of the coolest scientists and explorers across planet Earth. I think we've been to 10 countries. It's been wild. We released sea turtles into the ocean. We went to the bottom of the ocean. We talked about Antarctic expeditions. It's been crazy. I haven't slept at all. It's been so much fun. But we wanted to wrap up with an epic 3-part series with the amazing folks at SANCCOB. SANCCOB is in Cape Town, South Africa, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And what they do is rescue, rehabilitate, and re-release injured seabirds, particularly penguins. Yes, there are penguins in Africa. And we're going to learn from Alex today, one of my very favorite educators we work with in the entire world, all about the work that they do there. They're also huge educational ambassadors. So we've had the chance today to bring in over 1,000 students from around the world to hear about the story of SANCCOB. So I'm so excited to dive in with our first program. If you're on YouTube, let us know where you're joining from. We'd love to hear from you too. And without further ado, Alex, so nice to see you again, man, and take us away.
It's great seeing you as well. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward to teaching all of your teachers and your students. All right then, so let me begin. My name is Alex. I am the educator here at SANCCOB. SANCCOB stands for the Southern African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds. And we've been doing this kind of work since 1968. So we're one of the oldest non-profit, non-government organizations in our country. And we've saved over 100,000 marine birds and counting. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you a few videos just on certain aspects of our operations. And that's just because I am using Wi-Fi, so there are certain things I won't be able to show you because the Wi-Fi doesn't reach there, or it's actually happening outside of our facility as well. So I'm going to swap my camera over, and you guys should be seeing my screen. So this is a release. So as mentioned before, we are rehabilitating our injured seabirds. We're getting them into good enough condition, and then we are returning them back into the wild. Now, this is very, very important. It's the main difference between us and a zoo and aquarium. A zoo and aquarium, they want to keep their animals... Whoa. No, don't worry. That wasn't me freezing. That was my video freezing. We want to return our animals back into the wild. So it takes about 2 to 3 months worth of rehabilitation, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends on the condition the animal is coming to us in. But ultimately, our main goal is to release them back into their colonies. So we release at Boulders Beach and at Stony Point, and if the weather conditions are favorable, we'll do releases every single week. So usually every Thursday in the week, we're doing releases of penguins back into the wild. Our other seabirds are released in island colonies as well. And that's all quite important because most of the seabirds we're handling are quite endangered. We also do some other work as well. This is also trying to increase the populations and obviously save some of our more specialized patients here. So this is a GoPro video of us feeding just one of our babies. And if you guys didn't know, we're actually in a bit of a seabird crisis. We've had an unexpected chick abandonment of about 150 chicks in our center. So we have some of these little small guys here. We have a few larger ones as well. And they came to us specifically because of the bad weather conditions that we've been experiencing. So one of the challenges that not just seabirds, but all animals face right now is climate change. It's the stronger storm systems, obviously raising the sea levels and that sort of thing. So very problematic. And this facility I'm now showing you is our chick rearing unit. It was built in 2007. It's allowed us to be the very first and currently still only organization in the world to hatch, raise, and release African penguins back into the wild. So there are other organizations that have hatched and raised, but we were the first to hatch, raise, and release. So this little baby over here, he just got some fish smoothie, which is basically a blended fish mixed with vitamins, minerals, calcium, and he's getting a few fish pieces now as well. Now this individual is, let's say about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, maybe slightly older, but At a month and a half, an African penguin is adult sized. And at 3 months, they are actually kicked out of their nest. So, generally speaking, penguins grow very rapidly. Um, to put it in a bit of a greater understanding, if your learners grew as fast as a penguin, they would all be born today. Then on a Sunday, they will be adult sized. And then next week, Tuesday, they'll all be kicked out of the house to look for their own place to live. So our penguins grow very, very quickly. And that's why these guys have to be fed every 3 hours. So their first feeding is at 6 o'clock in the morning, then 9, then 12, then 3, then 6, and then at 9 o'clock again. And that's their last feeding. And there's only very specialized staff allowed to work in this type of area because we have to keep everything very clean as well. These guys are very susceptible to bacteria and germs and diseases. And I've been working at SANCCOB and I've never stepped foot in this facility in the 7 years I've been here. So it's only very special people. We're also doing everything the parent does, wiping the mouth, wiping the bottom, and that's all quite important because one of the main functions of penguins is to actually defecate. It's to go to the bathroom. They generate a lot of guano, which is a very fancy term for bat or bird poo, and that's very good fertilizer as well. And they also get teddy bears, quite important. They cuddle up against them, and it also tricks them into thinking there's more competition for food, so they actually feed a lot more freely. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to walk outside our office and we're going to have a look at our center and some of the patients that we have here at the moment. So please follow me.
As we're following Alex, we might lose him just a little bit as he's walking through the voice. Oh, I'll just bring up again for our folks who have been sharing this on YouTube, the website for SANCCOB, some of the social media pages if you want to check those out as well. Looks like we've got him back again in the outdoor enclosures though, so we can head to our penguin friends, which is super cool.
So guys, I do apologize. We are using a Wi-Fi and I will lose signal on occasion, but we will always reconnect with you. So thank you very much for your patience and your understanding. So right over here is our home pen. And all of these patients over here are unfortunately individuals that we cannot release back into the wild. So they're here because they have some form of injury that would prevent them from surviving in the wild. And right now they're going to be fed. So I'm going to go actually down there, a little bit closer to the feeding area so I can show you an up-close view of our feeding. So we are very well known for our African penguins, but we do take care of all other seabirds. So that's seagulls, it's cormorants, it's pelicans, albatross, and you're actually very lucky. We have a albatross here on site, which is a very rare occurrence. Usually albatross are not normally found near continents. They're deep oceanic birds. So it's very, very, very rare that we will get an albatross. But if we do get an albatross, it means because they are very weak or they're injured or they're sick in some way. So let us see if I can show you a closer look at this feeding over here. I just have to make sure to close these doors because penguins are, if you guys didn't know, very similar to cats. They're very curious, they're very inquisitive, they're very stubborn, very independent, and you really can't train them to do much, but they are also amazing escape artists as well. Now you'll notice that besides our African penguins, which are the vast majority of the penguins here, we do have a few rockhopper penguins. So those are the penguins with a really cool hairdo. And this lady over here is one of our bird rehabbers. So she actually has one of the most important jobs here at the center. She is the first person to open up the center. She is the last person to leave. She does a lot of supervising of all of our most important areas. She does training for our volunteers and our interns that are helping us here at the center as well. And she assists the vet with operations. And yeah, she's an incredibly passionate, very hardworking, very dedicated person. And I hope you never, ever, ever underestimate anybody working in conservation. We're always trying to be as passionate to save as many animals as we can. So this area, once again, is for all of our permanent animals. So these guys all have names. So Hansel and Gretel, Jaeger, Meister, String, Stubby, Norbert, Steve, and sometimes we get it wrong. So Steve actually turned out to be a girl. Ballerina turned out to be a guy. So you can't actually look at a penguin and say, that's a girl, that's a boy. Sometimes the guys have a broader beak and sometimes they're larger, but the only surefire way to tell is if we wait long enough, one of them's going to lay eggs, and that's the girl, or you do a very specialized, very expensive blood test. Now, we're busy feeding these guys fish, and this is a catch-22 situation for us, which means it's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because it gets our animals back into good health, and we can release them, but it's bad because we get lots of animals underweight because they can't find any fish. And that's one of the ways that you can help us save these amazing animals, not just our seabirds here in South Africa, but all seabirds around the world. If you eat less fish, you're putting less pressure on the oceans to get fish out so that the other animals that are living there can actually have enough food to eat as well. Now, these rock hoppers are not normally found here in South Africa. They're actually coming from islands halfway to Antarctica. So if you were in South Africa, you would go directly towards the Antarctic, and halfway there, you will find islands like Marion Island and Tristan da Cunha. And that little guy over there needs to be fed properly. So that guy over there is actually not a permanent bird. So the one right in front of here, the brown guy, he's actually a normal patient. He's just long term here with us. So he actually is not free feeding very well, which means that we have to force feed him, which means that we have to physically force food down his throat. Now, that is very, very important because one of the main things that we are very worried about here at the center is taming. If the animals become too tame, they are non-releasable. If they like people too much, they're non-releasable. I'm going to try and see if I can't get a good angle because these birds are quite dark, so they're blending in with the water quite well. So these guys over here are juvenile Cape gannets. They are highly specialized diving birds. The one with the blue bandage is actually an individual with a broken wing that we're trying to operate and sort out. But these guys, most of them have come to us because their parents have left them too soon. And that's mainly because of quite a number of things that we're doing. So once again, overfishing, climate change, things like pollution, so littering is big, big problems as well. Habitat loss. We also like to go to islands. We love islands. And we accidentally release cats and dogs and rats and mice and other animals on islands, and that causes big problems for them as well. Because for seabirds, the islands are the best place to make their nests. It's where they form their colonies, so where you get large groups of those seabirds. And it's very important and very good because there's not a lot of predators. There's not a lot of other animals on the islands that can eat them. So islands are the best place to go. I am now going to be moving into an area where we have some babies. So I will not be able to talk very much. I don't want to disturb them as well. As mentioned, we've received about 150 unexpected abandoned chicks due to bad weather conditions. So I'm going to quickly see if I can't peek in and show you guys some of the babies as well. So those were our African penguin babies. I just had to be very, very quiet around them because any noise, too much movement, it causes too much stress on the animals. And stress, along with taming, is something that we always have to be worried about. Stress is actually very bad for birds. They handle stress the exact opposite way that humans do. So for humans, we handle long-term stress very, very well. But any short-term stress, like if we get into an accident or something like that, is not really good for us. The birds, they handle it the opposite. Long-term stress actually affects their organs, it hits their nervous system, so we have to be very, very careful. These are still a bit of the fluffy juvenile Cape gannets, so they still have a little bit of fluff on them, and then they'll eventually be allowed to go into the water with the rest of them as soon as they lose most of their down. But these pools are a vital aspect in terms of getting them better, guys. We use them for 7 main reasons. This is a gym for them. It's exercise. It ensures they have strong swimming muscles. It is also used as a bath. So it's used to encourage them to look after their feathers, which is why we are now hosing down these guys to get all of their feathers nice and wet. It is drinking water for them, which is quite important to actually clean these pools because they also go to the bathroom in them. So we have to make sure that these pools remain as clean as possible. And it's used to cool them down. Very important during spring and summer. It's a social activity for them to de-stress and relax and just, say hi to their friends. It's physio for certain conditions, but most importantly, it's used to test the waterproofing of their feathers. So the waterproofing is one of the final tests we do on them before we release them back into the wild. And generally, besides the waterproof feathers, they also have to pass 2 other tests. So their blood work has to be clean, and they also have to be in a nice, good weight. The weight for our blues, so you might notice that most of these penguins over here, like this guy over here, do not have the traditional black and white feathers that you're used to seeing on a penguin. Now, that is just because these guys are very young. So this is the only way you can really tell the age of an African penguin by looking at the colors of their feathers. So if they're black and white, they're adults. If they are if they are dark brown, they are juveniles, so teenagers. If they are bluish gray, like the guys I was just showing you, they're blues. They're 3 months going on to their first year. And prior to that, they are babies, so very fluffy, very cute. So right now we're just trying to get these guys out of the water, so we have to jump in and then we have to kind of herd them because, as mentioned, penguins, they like to go wherever they want to go. So we need to get these guys out so we can put the next batch of birds back in here. And that's quite important, guys. We have very limited facilities. We'd like to get all of our patients into the water at least 3 times a day, and that's just to ensure that they are benefiting from this water and the swimming and the exposure. But you'll notice that these penguins have tags on their flippers, and all of the other patients here also have some form of identification. So this is basically how we tell who's who, because we give each one of these guys specific treatment depending on the needs that they come to our hospital for. So if one animal just came to us because they couldn't find any food and they were just underweight, we just want to feed them. We don't want to do any operations or give any medications to them. Very different from an animal that's been bitten by a seal or an animal that's been caught in an oil spill. So all of these different reasons, we are giving them specific treatments, and we have different protocols and procedures as well. This is our main aviary. So this is where we keep all of our smaller flight birds. So any bird that can simply fly from standing. All of those other bigger flight birds, we'll put them in an open pen because they need a bit of a runway to get off of the air. So they're officially stuck. And also putting a very large bird in an enclosed space causes more stress on them, and that's something we don't want. So all of these guys, most of these guys are our gulls. We have these smaller gulls in front, which we call our heart-lip gulls. And then these larger gulls right at the back are our kelp gulls. So right now, Megan is just monitoring this bird while he's swimming because he's not doing in the best of condition. So sometimes our animals are not in the best of condition, and we have to monitor them all the time just to ensure that they are being okay. We don't want them to just swim and then something happens to them and nobody's around to actually monitor that as well. So most of the people you have seen are actually volunteers. They're coming from all over. We have a lot of locals, but we also get a lot of internationals, America, Europe, the UK, and they're all coming here to help us save our animals. So if you guys as internationals have a spare 6 weeks and you guys are 18 years and older, you're more than welcome to come and help us out as well. Originally, our organization began because of oil spills, and for quite some time, that's what we only dealt with. However, we then moved into rehabilitation. So over there, you'll see we have a very large great white pelican. So we get quite big birds here as well. So because of the rehabilitation work that we do with injuries and weakness and diseases, we have to do more rescue operations. And because we got more patients all the time, we had to train to an international standard. We got more volunteers into the center. We moved to education. Changing lifestyles and mindsets is one of the very few things that we can do to help our environment in the long term. And then the last 15 to 20 years, our research and our chick rearing. Research is very important because we are very happy with our success rate, which is about 80 to 85% success rate with our African penguins. But we want to know that once we do release them, they are surviving out in the wild as well. Chick rearing is due to the fact that right now we get hundreds of abandoned chicks and eggs as well. So that's every season.
Alex, just a quick note, if you can hear me, your connection's gotten quite a bit worse since you moved to this section of the area. So if you're able to move
I'm
back
just going
where
to
you were,
walk into our admissions room right now.
let's see. Try and check out our hospital together, folks, but we'll see how the connection does for us.
Are they still with me?
We're still with you. It's just a lot more, it's sketchier than it was before. You seem to be pretty good right now. So tell us about the hospital.
Okay, great. So guys, these are some, if not all of the species we're expecting for the year. So the very next African penguin, which is the top left.
Oh. Nope, we've lost you again, Alex. Sorry, man.
The very next Cape Cormorant is going to be 130th Cape Cormorant.
Let's see. Alex, if you can hear me properly, hopefully, moving back where you were before might be good. We've sort of lost you since you went into the corridor with the hospital in general. But you were really good for most of it, which is good. That's a positive sign, I think, folks. Great questions, by the way, on YouTube already. When we do get Alex back, I will take all our YouTube questions. We got Miss Craig, Miss Crow, Miss Rampersad's class. I will be coming to all of you. And again, while we're waiting for Alex's connection to sort of kick into high gear again, I will note, if you want to keep the learning going, this is just one broadcast. We can't possibly cover everything in the hospital, everything you guys might want to know, but SANCCOB.co.za and at SANCCOB are great resources to keep the learning going. Check out even more pictures about the amazing work that they do. They really are one of our favorite organizations we get the chance to work with. So we've lost Alex entirely now, but we are going to get him back in a minute. Let's see if there's any other questions that we can field while we're waiting. A big thank you to Mr. Ferguson's class, Miss Higgins, Miss Moore, and Miss Haynes' class. It's so nice to have such a wide audience today on YouTube and StreamYard. We had about 450 kids sign up for today's program, so we're really excited to hopefully have a really great Q&A together very, very soon. Ms. Rampersad's class, certain penguins do mate for life. Her question was about penguins mating for life. We actually talked about this in our Antarctic broadcast the other day, but emperor penguins will reconnect and stay together for life. In fact, a lot of seabirds in general, I don't know if we quite know why this is, albatrosses are another good example, will stay with the same partner throughout their entire lives, which is very, very cool. Let's see any other questions. How do penguins swim so fast from Braden? So Miss Moran's class, great job, guys. They are exquisitely adapted to the water. These are birds that have evolved to be in the water for a very long period of time. They've got very streamlined feathers, fins. They've got feet at the very back of their body. That's how they're able to stand upright. And so all of that makes them really exquisitely adept at swimming. We've got Alex back now, which is better than me answering questions about penguins because he knows more than I'll ever know. Welcome back, Alex.
I'm glad to be back. Oh, sorry about that, guys.
That's
Do you guys
okay.
have any questions? Anything you'd like to know?
We are getting all sorts of questions. And by the way, we got like 99% of your talk was amazing. It was only when you went to that hospital corridor that things really shut down. But before that, we got everything.
Okay.
Live classes, I'm going to come to you guys now. Miss Craig's class, 2-3s. Anything you want to know about the hospital, about penguins and more? Come on into Mississauga. Hey.
My name is Mila. My question is, how many babies can a mommy penguin have at a time?
That is a great question. So, unlike chickens, penguins actually have very limited eggs. So, on average, anything from 1 to 3 eggs. It's very rare that they'll actually lay 3 eggs, but it's an average of 2 eggs. And right now, with all the issues they're facing, it's only one baby that's actually surviving. But each one of those eggs takes 40 days to actually hatch. So, incubation from laying until hatching. And then it's a lot of work on the parents to take care of them. But if you're talking about the Antarctic species, like the emperor penguins, they only lay 1 egg because they can only keep 1 egg on their foot. They can't have 2 eggs. Great question.
Yeah. Miss Crow's class, I will come to you guys if you want to unmute your mic and camera. Miss Rampersad, you've been sharing in the chat, but I'll come to you live if you want to share a question on camera on behalf of one of your students. Welcome back in Toronto. Hey.
Thank you. Hi. We just want to know, the chicks at the shelter, because they're so young, will they know how to raise their own chicks when they're released in the wild when they grow up?
Yeah, that's an excellent question as well. So for penguins, a lot of what they do in the wild is instinctive. So the hunting, the feeding, all of that, we don't teach it to them. Even their parents don't teach it to them as well. And because we've now used microchips to actually track our animals out in the wild, we're actually getting data that shows that the chicks that we've released years back are actually now breeding, are in breeding stage, and they actually have their own chicks. So they seem to be doing perfectly fine. As mentioned, we also do have a research team, so their job is to go out to population surveys. They also do a lot of transponder work as well. They collected a lot of data. And if there was any issues that we've seen with our released chicks, I think they would have noted it, and then we could have changed our rehabilitation process around. But so far as I'm aware, everything's going fairly well, despite the fact that all of the issues that they're going through at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic question. Thanks, Alex. I'm going to take a few from YouTube. Miss Crow, if you want to flick on your devices, I'll come to you in a minute as well. Mr. Ferguson's class, Ishal has got a question. Ishal's been asking questions all week long, Alex. Ishal's like on the ball. Do penguins only eat fish, or do they eat other things as well?
So it depends on the species. For the rockhoppers that you guys saw earlier, they actually live in an area where there's more squid in the water than fish. So they actually have to get a supplement of squid here at our center. Otherwise, their feather quality isn't in the greatest of condition. So it's things like squid, certain types of fish, anchovy, sardines, and then also they will go for crustaceans. And the crustaceans are quite important because that's where they're getting most of their calcium from for bone development as well. So those 3 types.
Very cool. I just had some crab cakes in St. John's, Newfoundland not too long ago, so I completely understand the allure of crustaceans. Malia in Miss Higgins' class wants to know, how do you get the blood work of penguins? How do you actually take that? Where's the medical facility for them? I know we were about to learn more in the hospital, so if you could speak to that, that would be great.
Okay, thought I might just pose it on the penguins while I'm chatting. So for blood work, we are actually getting their blood from the foot. It's easier to find a vein on the foot. Generally speaking, we have to check for quite a number of different things: red blood count, white blood count. We have to check for diseases like babesia. But all of that is quite important because it also lets the vet know what kind of medication, what kind of fluids do we have to use on them. So it's that's how we get our blood work done, and all of our blood work is done on site. So while we were in the admissions room, I'm not too sure if you guys saw the microscope, but the only time we'll ever send off a particular sample or something we're uncertain about like a particular disease, which we did for AI, which is avian influenza, we'll then send it off to a proper lab, so a state lab as well.
Yeah, fantastic question, guys. All right, Miss Robbins' class has a question that links to another one from Miss Rampersad's class. Do you keep track of the chicks when you release them? Do you make sure they get back with their original colony? What happens after they're put on the beach like you guys do?
Okay, so in general, penguins don't normally, sometimes they do, but they don't normally stay in their parent colonies. So when the chicks are kicked out of the nest at 3 months of age, they are actually out in the open ocean looking for a new colony to stay in. And that could take anything from 6 months to a whole year, depending on, obviously it's different for different species, and I wouldn't be able to speak on the different species, but for African penguins, that's generally the case. So they're spending most of their life in the ocean, anything from a 60% to a 80% in general. But they don't stay with their parents per se. Not to say that penguins are bad parents. They are amazing parents. They stick together for life. They share all the responsibilities equally down the middle. But that is quite important because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of pressures and dangers while they are rearing their young as well. I hope I answered the question.
Oh no, that's great. Just a quick follow-up. So when you release them though, do you track them or not? Just for our kids that are keen to know.
Yes, so generally speaking, we're injecting them with a microchip. It's the exact same microchip that you guys would use in your cats and dogs. We don't use more sophisticated transponders unless we have a research project or something that we're looking for in particular, and that's just because those transponders are incredibly expensive. The battery life wouldn't last as long as the penguin does, and also we don't want to track the shark or the orca that's eating them out in the wild. So what we do have is ground-based sensors, and when the penguin walks over the sensor, it actually reads that transponder detail. And we're also putting weighing scales as well onto that, so we can weigh the penguin as they leave the colony and then weigh them again when they come back, so we can see how much food they're actually eating.
Very cool. How about that? I'm going to head to our live classes and then take a few more from YouTube. Miss Craig's class, come on in, 2 3s, and take us away.
Hi, my name is Lizzie, and my question is, how do you heal the penguins without hurting them, and what do you use?
Sorry, can you just repeat that question again? How do we heal the penguin?
And how do you heal the penguins, and what do you use to do that? How do you heal them without hurting them, and what do you use?
Okay, so that is a difficult question. We have to do different things. So, for instance, that Cape Gannet with the broken wing, we have to pin the bones. So he has to go for an operation. Very different from most of his friends around him because they're just here because their parents have left them too soon. So all we have to do is just make sure that they get fed enough and that they don't get used to being around people too much. Other birds, for instance, that come to us swallowing hooks, we have to perform an operation to remove the hook. Bite wounds as well, we have to do surgery, and also we have to move tissue around. So we do operations, we give them certain medications. So the white box in the center of the screen over there, that's actually a nebulizer. So instead of injecting them with medication or them taking a pill, we just actually use medicine. We make it into a mist, and then they're just breathing the medication in. So it's a lot less stressful. It also means that we can medicate quite a number of individuals at the same time. They're not getting too tame because we're not handling them too much. But it also means that we have to use a little bit more medication, so it's slightly more expensive for us as well. So all of this, everything I'm showing you now, guys, this has all been bought through by donations. And yeah, it's quite a lot of money to keep a rehabilitation center going. Yep. So it's only thanks to the general public that we can actually keep doing the work that we do. So thank you very much for that question.
That's a great question, guys. And it's nice that you literally practice what you preach, and the fact that you're trying to make sure that animals aren't stressed, even at a higher cost to you. I think that's a really important point for our kids to know, is that if we can do stuff to make animals' lives a little more seamless, happier as we're taking care of them, that is always worth the effort. So great question, guys. Miss Rampersad, I'm heading to you, and then I'll take a few more from YouTube, and then time flies and you're having fun in these broadcasts. We'll wrap up not long after that, but I love your passion for penguins, everybody, and come on back in at St. Anne. Hey.
Hi, I have a question from Naledi. Naledi wanted to know how big do penguins get?
Okay, so for our species, it's generally 40 to 45 centimeters. It's the one piece of information that I found on the internet that has always been inaccurate for African penguins. They often say about 50 to 60 centimeters, but it is smaller than that. The size of a penguin is usually determined by the climate. So a lot of people automatically think that penguins are only found in cold locations like Antarctica. There are 18 different species, and only 4 of them actually live in Antarctica. The rest of them are in more warmer climates. So it's only the Antarctic species that are quite large. The emperors, which are the largest living species, are 1.3 meters, and the smallest species are our fairy penguins in Australia, and they're very cute. But I can leave some homework for you guys to check out how short they are.
They certainly are very cute. And it's a perfect lead into our question, actually. Next, from one of our online groups, Rishi wants to know, how many kinds of penguin are there total, do you know? And how many specifically do you care for at the facility?
Okay, so as mentioned, there are 18. However, that is a contested fact between some scientific groups. Some say 18, some say 19. There's slight genetic differences between certain populations of them. However, I generally say 18, and they're all over the world, but only in the southern hemisphere, guys. So penguins originally evolved in New Zealand. At that time, Antarctica was half as close as what it currently is to that area. And they stayed in the south because if you have a look at the world map, there's a lot more landmass in the north and a lot more ocean in the south. So there's more food availability for them here in the south. So we have penguins in South America, like our Humboldt penguins. We have penguins in Australia, like our fairy penguins. We even have a penguin species that lives near the equator, the Galapagos penguins. And obviously in that location, they're very, very hot, so they're not the biggest size penguins.
I like that you referenced the fact that the bigger ones are in the south where it's colder. We find this with a lot of animals. When you get closer to the poles, you end up looking more spherical, and that allows you to maintain that body heat. This is something you'll get to in your classrooms in about 5-6 years, students, but it's very, very cool. One more from YouTube, and then we got a student right at the camera, and Miss Craig, to wrap us up. Let's see. Oh, in Miss Higgins' class, they wanted to know, you mentioned about a new facility at SANCCOB. Could you tell us about anything about it, improvements or features that will enhance your work there?
Okay, so in general, our organization needs to generate at least about $1 million to $1.5 million every month to keep running. Our budget is a bit inflated this year because we do have a number of upcoming projects to assist the populations of our penguins and our other seabirds. We're hopefully going to be building and recreating a new penguin colony along our east coast, which will be at the Hoop Nature Reserve. So we've actually fenced off the area against other predators. We put statues of penguins there. We put audio recordings of penguins spraying there, and we've done several releases on site. So we'll see in a few years if they actually do pop up back there and start a new colony. We are then also going to be building a new rehabilitation facility in Namibia. And that will be co-founded with the Namibian government. So that will be NAMCOB instead of SANCCOB. But that will be assisting us quite a bit because we have African penguin populations on that side as well. We have a number of other projects as well. We'd like to get solar panels on our roof. We want to be as renewable and also as efficient as possible. If you guys don't know, we do get some blackouts now and then, so it's always very, very challenging for us to keep running, and we need the power to go. And then, we also would like a new visitor center, which will be a much larger education room for me to create more awareness. Those are a few of the projects that we have upcoming. So it's a big year for us.
How nice is that? Very cool, Alex. Thanks, man. Miss Craig, we're going to wrap up with you with one final question. I know we could talk penguins all day, but if you guys want, we got 2 more programs right after this. You can just stay on and listen to more stuff from Alex if you want to sneak in any additional questions. 2 3s. Hi.
My name is Jacob, and how many penguins have you saved?
Ooh.
That is a great question, and unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that because I wasn't here in the beginning. I do know the total number of seabirds that we've saved. So since 1968, we have saved over 100,000 marine birds and counting. So I just want to quickly show you, because we actually began thanks to one woman, this woman. So this is Althea Westphal, our founder. Back in 1968, there was an oil spill. At that time, nobody saved oil penguins. So out of the goodness of her heart and incredible formidability, she actually used a vehicle to pick up 60 penguins and took them home with her. She then washed them 3 or 4 at a time in her bathtub, gave them pieces of hake in the couple of months that they were here, so they actually buy a lot of fish. She then also created a temporary pool for them in her garden, and every week piled them into a vehicle, took them to one of the tidal pools along our coastline to have a bit of a swim, and then packed them back in a vehicle to take them home as well for exercise. So she did an incredible job. She is sadly no longer with us, but her legacy lives on very, very strongly through our organization and the volunteers and interns and staff that we are here with.
Alex, thank you so much for that. It's really important to highlight the amazing individual people behind conservation initiatives. This is something we've been featuring all Oceans Week long and all year long, in fact. I would encourage our classes, too, if you're interested in saving penguins. The biggest prize in all of conservation this year went to a penguin researcher that we've had on for years, Poppy Borboroglu from Argentina. So just a nice tie into the amazing work that you're doing in South Africa. There's some great penguin stuff happening around the globe, and our students are clearly very, very keen on all of it. Alex, as you know, I'm going to bring in our class to say a big thank you and farewell. I'll see you again in like 10 minutes, basically. But Miss Craig, come on in. Miss Rampersad, Miss Crow, thank you guys so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.